is a tank that has been completely developed with the lessons learned during the Ukraine war in mind. Its many futuristic features, such as artificial intelligence, improved sensors, and the capacity to repel the same Javelin and in-law missiles that have been annihilating Russia's tank fleet, make the Abrams X a tank of the future. This tank represents a significant evolutionary step beyond the venerable starward tank design of the United States. But the Army might not accept it since it is so innovative. The first M1 Abrams was unveiled to much fanfare in 1979. It was intended to go head-to-head with Soviet tanks that were steadily but definitely taking the lead, and it was intended to replace the M60, a Cold War stalwart. The Abrams creators were certain it could handle anything the Soviets could throw at it. But nobody was sure this risky redesign of traditional American tanks would really be up to the task. Then in 1991, the Abrams got to show the world just how it would have handled itself in a winner-take-all battle for Europe, taking on hordes of Soviet-built main battle tanks in the hands of veteran Iraqi crews. The Abrams absolutely eviscerated the competition, with the only losses being due to friendly. It was clear that the United States had won the tank competition, but that was 30 years ago. And now the US faces new threats, and that's why General Dynamics believes that it's time for a drastic redesign of this American classic. But the US Army isn't convinced. Current Abrams feature a 120mm main gun that can fire Dallin ammunition, depleted uranium armor in combination with highly classified British Chekra armor thermal sights, a fire computer to help the crew hit targets even at full speed on bumpy terrain, a network capability to help it communicate with other friendly assets, and finally, the Terrifies active protection system to allow it to defeat enemy anti-tank missiles. The Abrams X builds on these strengths and then enhances them. First, it's the new gun. While it's still a 120mm cannon, the new gun was spotted on a General Dynamics technology. The demonstrator is the XM360. The cannon was originally developed in the early 2000s for the Army's future combat systems. This program was meant to catapult the US Army into a new era of technological domination. But after $18 billion spent on the program, it failed to produce a single working combat vehicle. However, while the FCS was an abject failure as a whole, it produced a lot of successes and taught the Army many lessons. The XM360 cannon is one of those breakthroughs. While it's in the current M256 cannon, both share the same ammunition and have roughly the same firing characteristics. The XM360 is much lighter thanks to the use of titanium and C. That might not seem like a big upgrade, but when you're talking about a gas-guzzling, fuel-hungry vehicle that weighs over 60 tons, every single pound shit means enhanced mobility, endurance, and speed. You're going to hear this a lot in this episode because the Abrams X is so new and top-secret details are extremely scarce. But other performance upgrades that this new cannon uses are unsurprisingly classified. However, we expect this new cannon will provide the ability to use all sorts of new data-link demo types. Though Abrams won't be shooting an anti-tank, miss a lot of its barrel anytime soon, like some Russian designs. When your cannon is as lethal as Abrams, you don't need fancy missiles to wreck. Weight is a big deal with modern main battle tanks, and the M1 Abrams has been putting on weight like a pro heavyweight fighter in intense training. When it first came out to development, the Abrams weighed bulky 60 tons. However, after a slew of upgrades, including new engines, depleted uranium armor, and enhanced survivability packages for urban combat, the Abrams were starting to look like it. It'd been going too hard on its heavyweight diet, clocking in at 73.6 tons. The Army had serious concerns about how current Abrams would fare in combat. Bridge crossings are especially concerning, as this much weight puts the Abrams out of safety limits for many civilian bridge infrastructures. It's increasingly looking like the current Abrams should learn how to swim or will have to rely on engineers to build them bridges. A dicey proposition, just asks the Russians. In Ukraine, the Abrams X is purported to have dramatically cut the weight of this mighty war. Though how and where remains classified, returning to its roots, the Abrams X is back at its fighting weight of 60 tons without losing any of its current capabilities. Reduced weight in the cannon and the use of composites elsewhere are largely to thank for this engineering feat, but other weight-cutting measures remain to be disclosed, and probably never will be reduced. Crew might be a reason for lower weight, as the Abrams X features the first American three-crew design. The Soviets initially designed autoloaders for their tanks at the start of the Cold War, and this promised to relieve the logistical burden of an extra crew member. However, American observers noticed that the autoloaders experienced frequent breakdowns and other technical problems, thus giving America a serious distaste for them. Despite the fact that many modern tanks, such as the Leopard 2, Japanese Type 10, and South Korean 2, all feature auto, the U.S. Army isn't convinced that this is the right call. They prefer good old human autoloaders who cannot jam or experience any other mechanical or electrical malfunction. Plus, human autoloaders tend to provide a higher rate of fire. Though after loading a dozen or more heavy tank shells, the human is going to eventually get worn out. There are practical reasons for the Abrams to retain a fourth crew member, though in case of a track being thrown, the crew has to get out and perform a fix themselves with tracks weighing hundreds of pounds. However, the biggest barrier standing in the Abrams X's way is the fact that the United States military does not currently face a serious land threat. Instead, it looks like its next war will be against China, and a Sino-American war will take place at sea and in the air. U.S. tank crews are extremely unlikely to see any action in such a war. Thus, funding priorities for a new battle tank remain incredibly low. Now go check out Hitler's insane 1,000-ton war machine, or click this other video instead.